Hello and welcome to this tutorial on Louise Farrenc's Étude in D-flat Opus 41 number 5, which is part of the ABRSM Grade 8 2023-2024. If you're wondering how on earth I'm so quick off the mark with this thing in 2022 on its release date in June, that's because I've had an advanced copy because I've written a review. And made a podcast review. If you want to listen to the review is on the podcast Heart of the Piano. You can go to heartofthepiano.com or you can go and listen to it on Spotify or Apple. So, beautiful piece. And it's deceptively really actually quite tricky. It's deceptively tricky if you want to play it well. I mean, anyone can just sit down and do something like this. Blah, blah, whatever. But if you want to really bring out the tune, I was going to sing and then I thought, no, I can't sing it. I'm going to sing really badly. But you want the melody. Okay, maybe I will sing a bit. I have to sing in the right octave. I can't sing that high. And that's a really, really long phrase. It's a massive phrase. We don't want to hear the thumb. We want to hear as little of that thumb as possible. So we want to hear, and also we don't just want to hear all those thirds. We really just want to hear just that top line. And so on and so on. So very tricky. There's two aspects to that. One is you need to have the right technique to be able to get that sound. And more importantly, and I think this comes really before the technique, you have to get really good at dividing your awareness and your mind and your focus, that you're mostly listening to that top note. If you're listening to you won't really focus on the top line. So for me, when I play this, I am listening, and that's why I sing, and that's why piano teachers sing sometimes really, really badly, because it's to show what it is that you're listening to and where your focus is. So let me actually try and sing it very, very badly in the right octave. And I'm singing that badly because that's where my focus is. And when I'm doing that, I'm not listening to all this other stuff going on. If I'm not really focusing on that line and I don't imagine I can sing it, I'll end up with something more like this. Which is like just a bunch of notes. We never just want to play a bunch of notes. We want to make music, and the music is... So something I recommend, and I recommend this to all my students, and I recommend this to all my students on whatever piece they're playing, is you want to figure out what's the most important bits. I call it a skeleton, but it's not really a skeleton because it's sort of more like you want the meat of it rather than the bones, But this is like this is the skeleton to me. And if we go on, that's the skeleton. And you know, it's up to you to decide how you're going to pull this apart and figure out what the most important bits are. But that's the kind of work that I recommend doing to start with, to get to know the piece, because it's not just a question of just learn all the notes. You have to hear da, da, dum, da, 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 and everything else is in the background. So one way of practicing it is, can you actually push all this stuff so you almost ignore it? It's like, the way I describe it to my students is like there's a young child who's going, hello, 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 and pulling at your trouser leg and wanting attention. But no, you're having a conversation with the grown-ups. and you know, you're not neglecting the child. It's just like, hang on, just for 5 minutes, let me just talk. It's important. And you just kind of tune them out. And, you know, not all the time, you know, you give the child a lot of your love, but, you know, maybe just for 5 minutes, you need to just tune them out because something important's going on. And this is like, hello, give me attention. And you don't, you tune it out. The top line is the very important adult conversation. And all this is like, hello, give me a sweet, give me attention, give me this, give me that. And you're like, you just tune it out. Anyway, so I will do another separate tutorial, because this has been asked for in other videos, to do with how you bring out melody lines over other stuff. One thing I will just say is you need to experiment with how your fingers move and how everything feels. I think that what a lot of my students do, and I talk about this on my podcast, so do listen to the podcast for more sort of tips about this, but what a lot of people do is they stare and they think very hard about what they want, and they don't feel what their hands are doing and what their wrist is doing and what their arms are doing. Now, if you want to bring out like that, it is essential that you are really, really inside the sensations of your hands and your fingers. I talked about this in the previous video where I was talking about another one of these grade 8 pieces. That was the ragtime one. I think it was the ragtime one. Yeah. And I was talking about interoception being the experiencing of all the nuanced physical sensations inside the body, as opposed to feeling like a puppet master, where you are the puppet master and your body is the puppet, and we're not feeling it. No, we need to feel it from the inside. And then I can feel in my fingers and in my hands all the subtle nuances, and I can adjust and change stuff. If you are just thinking, right, I need that, but you're not feeling it, it's going to be very hard to do this. So something you might want to experiment with is how you move the finger at the top. You might want to move it more. So like, for example, this finger's playing the melody, this finger isn't. You might want to experiment with things like this, particularly with your little finger. Something else you might want to experiment with is wrist rotation, where you if the melody is at the top, then very often we can rotate the wrist and get, because we're pivoting around the thumb, the further away we get from the thumb, the more leverage that we have, and the louder that note is going to be. But not in a, oh, you're staring at it and you try and make it work. You feel it, and you try and sort of feel it intuitively how that works. Most of what I'm doing is rotation, and when I play, I kind of lean into the outside with my arm weight. And then there are times like in bar 4, and I do recommend that you have a copy of the book in front of you while you watch and listen to this tutorial, so you can follow the stuff in the book. When we get to bar 4, this note here, this B flat in the melody with the A flat, it's so hard to not just go and play both notes loudly. It's very, very hard to get that B flat louder than the A flat. And in that moment, I really do lift my third finger up quite high. And when I lift my third finger up high, hopefully you can see that, it's then much easier to get that third finger louder. When we get to the B section, which is like from bar, why is that? Oh yeah, bar 30. It's really, really important that these chords in the right hand And again, I use a lot of rotation for that. So I rotate into that little finger. It's very impractical to just make the little finger louder than the other fingers because the little finger is one of your weakest fingers. So you have the chord ready to play and you do that and you play like that. And then you don't really play with your little finger. You rotate like this so all the fingers don't really move a lot. And then you'll find that little finger is so much louder than the other fingers. But don't just try and move it more. And then this definitely won't work. If all your fingers are there, and then you just try and make it louder, that's not going to work. So you have to feel and experiment with your arms, with your wrists, with everything. But don't just try and do this, which I think a lot of my students would do. They just stay very, very close. They don't move any other fingers. They don't move fingers. I mean, you could just move the little finger and go, and that's better. That's better than just trying to do that. But really, what you need to do is something like this. So before I play that chord in bar 30, I'm actually above the keys. And I rotate and drop onto it. And that really does make the little finger louder. And I don't really play using the little finger itself. I rotate onto it. Especially important here. Whoops. And here, that G sharp in bar 32 at the top needs to be really quite loud. And the way that I get that is I drop onto it and I drop on with rotation and leaning into that top note, not with the little finger. It's not strong enough. Yeah, it's been a few days since I've done this. So it's da-dum, da-ba, ba. The little finger doesn't really move. It looks like that. And then we have this fantastic bit in the last line. So from bar 33, so notice that it goes from the right hand in bar 33 straight into the thumb of the left hand. And when the right hand comes in with that G sharp in bar 34, it's got to be really, really quiet. So it goes like this. If I do the skeleton, it's something like from bar 32, I'm in 33 now. And then it goes. That's what you're aiming for. So from bar 33. And that page turn is a pig. I actually put this, I took photos and put it on my tablet, and I've got a Bluetooth pedal. I've just got this Bluetooth pedal. Oh my God, it was so difficult trying to use my left foot to turn the Bluetooth pedal. But anyway, yeah, that's a really tricky page turn. And then here in bar 36 going into 37, you have to bring the A out in bar 37. So what I do is I'm like this. My second finger that plays the A is very pokey, really straight, and the other fingers are sort of squishy and pliable. So from 36. And you can hear that second finger is much, much louder. There's so much I could say about this piece. I'm going to try not to go too long. It's really, really important. I am going to do a video really, really soon about harmonic tension and release. And it's something that I talk to my students about a lot. I really need to do a video on this. Hopefully I'm going to do a video on this within the next week. We feel tension and release in the chest. It's almost like breathing in. We breathe in, there's tension. We breathe out and go, and we let go of the tension. So I've spoken about this before on some of my videos, and I've spoken about this in the podcast. Imagine you're watching television and something really shocking happens and you're really invested and you're in shock and it's like, and you actually could make that kind of noise and go, and why do we make that noise? Why do our lungs do that? Because there's tension, and that breathing in and then holding of the lungs, and with it's not just the lungs, our whole chest just feels the tension. And I talked about this in another video, that if I go, how do we know that's incomplete? We kind of know it's incomplete because we feel a tension in our body. Now, a lot of my students say, well, I know it, I just know it's incomplete. But I think unless you are like really logically analyzing and going, oh yes, we've just had a dominant and the dominant hasn't resolved to the tonic. I don't think anyone thinks like that. It is something that we feel in the body. We feel that, right? We feel that, you know, there's something in the body. It's a tension. So when we are playing anything, and I'm going to talk about this more in another video, but this piece needs a lot of this kind of tension release. There's tension there, and we know there's tension because if I stop, we go, there's something incomplete about that, and that's how we know that there's tension. Now, again, I'm going to talk about this in another video. When there is tension, we usually slow down and get louder. So when we see a crescendo and a decrescendo, like we see in the top line, a crescendo, I'm going to be a bit controversial here and say that most of the time when we see a crescendo, it doesn't actually mean get louder. And I know that that's going to be controversial, but to me, a crescendo means increase the tension. Now, usually when we increase the tension, that does mean we get louder. Getting louder increases the tension. But we can also slow down a little bit. So let me exaggerate this. This is going to be exaggerated. And so if I do the opposite, that'll kind of show you that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gradually speed up as I get to the top of the crescendo. And then you'll see that I'm destroying the whole point of it, which is to build tension. Hang on, I'll start slower. Okay. Oh, see, I just find it so hard going against the grain with this already. And you can hear that destroys the whole point of the crescendo. Now, I'm going to do the crescendo without getting louder. I'm going to do it only by getting slower. I'm going to try and keep the whole thing quiet. So I'm losing a little bit, you know, bringing out the top because I'm having to focus on something else. But hopefully you could feel that I was increasing the tension just by slowing down a little bit. So just bear in mind that when you are working on a piece like this, which is most of the pieces in the B section, which is expressive, you have to feel the harmonies. You can't just think it. If you're stuck in your head trying to play all the correct notes and you don't feel the harmonies, you end up with just something that sounds like this. So it was completely correct. I did everything totally correct. I got louder, I brought the tune out, I was being expressive, but I didn't feel the harmonies and it didn't pull and push. So anyway, stay tuned for my other videos to see stuff like that. Now, one of the things that increases tension is it's not just harmonic movement, but it's when there are notes that are not one of the chord tones. So in bar 30, this is a C-sharp minor chord, and the left hand goes to a non-chord tone, which is this A. I'm thinking I've just been doing a load of jazz, so I'm like, oh, that's the flat 13, but that's going to mean nothing to a classical pianist. But so it could be this. But it's not that. It's this. So I don't recommend being that extreme with it, but I do recommend sort of because this A, it is dissonant. It's not just, it's. So what I'm doing is I'm crescendoing to that note and then coming back down. And then also I just have a very, very subtle, that wasn't subtle, but I'm exaggerating it. Because when you have a little pause, you kind of magnify the effect of that thing. But I'm a bit more subtle than that. So, and okay, a bit more subtle. Okay, so now I'm being a bit extreme with it, but you can experiment from nothing, find the balance between this so hopefully you'll agree that's a bit flat, and somewhere in between that and this. That's too much, but just experiment, you know, experiment really at the extreme of and then, so let me try and find somewhere in between. And really the way to do this, it's tempting to just get pulled into, oh, exactly where is it going? And again, it's like you become the puppet master. I want to feel it in my chest, because when it's just right, I feel it and it'll click. It's a feeling in the chest. We feel it here. Some people call this really feeling it in the heart, you know, like feeling the heart of it, feeling it in your heart. But sometimes with my students who don't like woo-woo and want things to be a bit more, bit more rigorous, it's interoception of the chest, which you just want to be aware of all the sensations in your chest. And how you play needs to make you feel stuff in there, whether or not you call it your heart, whether it's just interoception in your chest, whatever, you know. So I could really go into a huge amount of depth on this. I'm going to try and resist that. Beautiful ending. And I think that you can take your time. I'm basically coming up to bar 88. I'm going to go from bar 87. And here, I just take my time. After that note, I take my time, have a bit of rubato, then so you can see my video on YouTube of me performing this. So yeah, I do think it's worth just pulling it around a little bit there. Oh God, it's tricky. Let me play it again. Ah. Now here, I do think that there should be a little slur because it's tension release, tension release. Tension, release, but getting quieter each time. And then here, I like coming over with my left hand, because that note at the top, we want to bring it out. And this, I don't think quite has the same ring to it. Also, it looks good. When the audience is to your right, and you do, so pretend you're the other side of me, and I do this. It's really nice. It's very theatrical, you know. You want to, one thing I found tricky was these sforzandos in bar 42. So if I go from the bar before, and then, Because it's tempting, I'm very tempted to go, but really I think what it wants is it wants to come right back down, and I find that quite difficult and counterintuitive. And then, and now you can get louder. Now, these bars here, I would have liked to have spent more time learning this before putting my performance up on YouTube, because it's difficult, and I allowed myself to slow down. And I think it's okay if you want to slow down. Hang on, let me go. And then, whatever it is. And then, but if you have time, experiment with not slowing down. I'm going to make a complete mess of this and just try and keep everything pushing forwards, but I'd need to spend a bit more time learning it. I'm going to go from the beginning of bar 42. And I think ideally it needs to go like that, but I couldn't be bothered. Sorry. I have so many pieces that I need to put up on YouTube, and I thought it was good enough. And, you know, in some ways, it's been quite a difficult balance for me to sort of decide when a piece is good enough, because I can always make it better and better and better. And you guys need to bear this in mind when you are recording. If you're doing a performance exam that you're recording and putting online, you need to not get neurotic and decide that'll do. And by that'll do, if you love it, if you genuinely love the music and you work on loving it, listen to my podcast for more information about this. It's not like, oh, whatever, man, whatever. No, you challenge yourself and you do the best that you can, and then you go, yeah, that was lovable. That was lovable enough. Not just like, oh, any old rubbish will do, but no, that was lovable enough so that you don't just have a breakdown and hate the piano and never want to do an exam again. You just want it to be lovable. You want to remind yourself why you're doing this, you know. So yeah, make sure you have a beautiful tone. You know, don't just try and bring the top out by just playing loudly. Really, everything has to come down, and it's got to be beautiful. It's dolce, sweet. It's you know, don't just focus on the notes. Let yourself be aware of this beautiful textures and the beautiful tone colors. It's like an organ. It's playing in a very, very calm church. You want to feel completely soothed until you get to the middle section where it's suddenly very emotionally agitated. But basically, work on making sure that the melody is singing above everything else, not by making it super loud, but by making everything quieter. And that's why this is an etude and not just like, you know, whatever title saying this is a beautiful piece. It's an etude because either you are able to play that melody line in a way that very quietly and beautifully sings out over everything else, or you can't, and you need to work out how to do it. And that's why it's an etude. So I think I've kind of said most of the things that I would want to say about it. I will bring out a tutorial with more technical details about exactly how to make something louder when you're balancing stuff. But really the main trick to that is just to be listening to that part and not be listening to the other parts. So yeah, you know, if you find this useful, do all the usual blah 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 YouTube things, click on like, click on subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Also, I do teach online, and I do have spaces for new students at the moment. So if you like my teaching style, do get in touch with me through heartofthepiano.com. And if you're interested, do have a listen to my review of the new ABRSM syllabus on Heart of the Piano podcast. So I will leave you to go and do your practicing. Take care and see you for the next tutorial. Bye.